so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. Now, of course, understanding this powerful truth is one thing. Applying this incredibly empowering wisdom to everyday life? Well, that's another, which is exactly why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week to help constantly remind you of what matters most. You are it. And I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I'm the reflection and extension of you who will be here each Wednesday interviewing a different consciousness changemaker. And on the other 4 weekdays, leading the way to ensure that your perspective is consistently expanded, your vibration is constantly elevated, and your heart is overflowing and full. Also, before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to take about a minute and a half to tell you about a few sponsors that not only help to make it possible to produce this show 5 days a week, but that I'm also genuinely passionate about promoting. The first longtime stellar supporter of the show that I want to mention is Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online with over 8,000 video titles. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. The second sponsor I'm sincerely passionate about promoting is Purium. It's no mystery that bringing your mind, body, and spirit into balance is necessary if a person truly intends to manifest the greatest and grandest version of themselves. So if you've been looking for a way to easily get organic superfoods into your system every day with a simple plan that can help you reestablish a healthier foundation and relationship with food, like I was doing before I found Purium, I highly recommend going to positivehead.com/transformation and checking out the videos and interviews there where I dive deeply into discussions explaining why I take these products every day. And should you ultimately end up on iShopPurium.com to purchase any of their 50 plus amazing superfood products, be sure to use the code POSITIVEHEAD, all one word, for a 25% discount. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I am very excited to have Julie Ryan here with me on the show. Julie is an inventor, serial entrepreneur, psychic, and medical intuitive. After inventing a number of widely used surgical devices and founding 9 companies, she settled into her natural talents as a psychic and medical intuitive, wrote a book called Angelic Attendants: What Really Happens as We Transition from This Life, and is the current host of the Ask Julie Ryan podcast. Hey there, Julie. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, Brandon. What a delight to be on with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to this. And it was exciting for me this morning. You know, it's about 8:30 where I am now. And this morning, you know, I normally record these on Wednesday and it's a Friday, and I completely spaced that I had a soul share. I had this interview, and I woke up later than normal, and then all of a sudden I got in front of my computer and see my calendar. I'm like, oh, I have a call in 30 minutes, and you know, I have an interview here in 30 minutes, and then I saw who it was, because I don't remember too. You know, Erica helps to book them for me, and a lot of times they're booked far out in advance, and so I'll usually prepare an hour or so before, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not prepared. I don't know who this is. And I was just so like excited when I saw it was you, Julie, because there's definitely some synchronistic timing to you being on the show and what you do and what's been unfolding in my life, not only over the last week, but even last night, and that I want to talk to you about, because the multiple levels of synchronicity, and we'll get into that in a minute. But before we do, I want to start with my standard opener, and it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
I say I'm an inventor and a businesswoman who learned how to do woo-woo.
I like it. I like it. We used to do on Wednesdays on Facebook Live, Woo Woo Wednesdays, where my dear friend Nixie would do like live card, pull cards. And so we did Woo Woo Wednesday for a long time. And recently she sort of got over, too many things on her plate and cut out doing it. But yeah, we like some woo woo around here. We're all about it.
Well, what I find on those elevator sentences, I guess, elevator speeches that are 3 seconds or less, is you want to pique somebody's interest, and that line piques people's interest. They look at me and they say, "What?"
You're like, what?
I look like a businesswoman. I mean, I don't wear turbans or caftans, or I don't look like Endora from Bewitched back in the day.
Right.
And so they kind of look at me and they say, "Really? Tell me more." And that's the opening that, anybody in sales or in business wants to have. Tell me more.
Right. Exactly. Well, speaking of telling me more, I'd love to get a little bit of your backstory. How did you end up, at this place? How did you, obviously you've had a very unique trajectory, from serial entrepreneur, inventor, to all the woo-woo. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey up to this point.
All right. Well, as you mentioned in the intro, I am an inventor. I've invented orthopedic surgery devices, Brandon, that are sold throughout the world. My first invention has been on the market for 30 years. And
wow.
The patent ran out about 10 years ago. So that was a sad day. But no, it wasn't. Seriously, it was great. I licensed it to the largest orthopedic implant company in the world, and it's still sold globally. And then other inventions that I've concocted are still on the market as well. And those were manufactured through companies that I owned. And I sold my last medical device manufacturing company in 2015. I've also been in 5 different industries. Like you, I'm an entrepreneur, and I think it's got to be like a DNA thing, don't you think? Because why else
I came out this way.
Do this? Absolutely. I can't help myself either. And people
at 5 years old, I was like professing, all the things that I would do to my mother, and she's like, okay, whatever, kid.
And at 10, I was passing out flyers in the neighborhood saying I'd babysit your dog or your kid or whatever.
I had my first business by 10. I was selling candy at school. And then all the kids started copying me. And then the principal shut it down because it became like the candy selling phenomenon.
Oh, my gosh. I know. Probably
I think one kid actually
right?
did it. I think one kid actually did. Now that I think back, it just hit me. One kid actually did it before me, but he only did it like one day or something. And then I responded to that and was like, hold on, that gives me an idea. And then I switched up what I sold, but
how funny.
Yeah, it's definitely in the genes.
So I, as an entrepreneur and a mom and a wife and living my regular life, doing normal, regular things. A friend of mine, 26 years ago, gave me a book by Carolyn Mace called Anatomy of the Spirit. And it was a birthday present. And I read it and I thought, she calls herself a medical intuitive. And I thought, what the heck is a medical intuitive? I never heard of that. And so I read her book and I was interested. And back then, Brandon, we didn't have Amazon yet. And the internet was just kind of getting going. And so I was old fashioned, but that's what we did at the time. I went to a bookstore to see if there were any other books.
Oh, I remember that.
Or maybe even bookstores. I went to a Barnes and Noble, actually. And now my book is sold in Barnes and Noble. How about that? But I went to a bookstore and I
still survive.
That's right. God bless them. I found a book called Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan, who's a former NASA physicist. And she took energy, quantum physics and quantum mechanics and all of that, and and talked about it in understandable English to the layperson. I certainly am not a physicist. And it made sense to me. And I thought, wow, this is so cool. I wonder if there's anybody in my area that's teaching it. And at the time I was living in Nashville. So I called her school, which right now is still
I lived in Nashville.
Oh, did you? Okay. And
yeah, once upon a time.
Her school is still in existence, and they offer a Bachelor of Science degree in this energy medicine stuff. So I called her school and I said, is there anybody in the Nashville area that's teaching this? Do you have any graduates? And sure enough, there was. And so I met a woman named Susan Austin Crumpton, who still has a school in Nashville. And I studied with her for 6 years, Brandon, and paid the equivalent. I have paid the equivalent of getting a medical school degree.
Wow.
I mean, really, to learn how to do all of this stuff. And so literally I tell people, I am not one of those psychics who's had dead people chasing her since childhood. Or if I did, I didn't know I wouldn't have known what to do with it, let alone had I known. But what I am now, I consider is an inventor and a businesswoman who learned how to do woo-woo. And I tell people I'm a buffet of psychicness. So you know how some psychics just talk to dead people, some people just do medical intuitive stuff. I do it all. Medical intuitive, pet psychic, pet intuitive, past life stuff, talk to deceased loved ones. I can tell how close to death someone is. I mean, the whole 9 yards. And what I have found is that once you reach this level of vibration that was transferred to me from my teacher, and that's what I do in my classes when I train people, it's about being able to reach this level of spirit, I call it. It just opens up this whole new world that you can access whatever you want to access. But I turn my abilities on and off at will, Brandon. I don't walk around scanning people because I don't think that's ethical. I think it's unethical. I could.
And probably exhausting.
It's not, actually. For me, since I turn it on and off and I control it, it's invigorating for me.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I get energy from it.
Journey.
From private consults and also from my show. Because last night I recorded my show and I'll get a bunch of callers, but I'll get maybe 9 or 10 people on in an hour. And so my energy's going all across the country and sometimes abroad if the time difference works. Or some people in other countries will just call me from the middle of the night. They'll stay up because they'll want to call into the show. But no, I'm invigorated by doing it. I don't get an energy drain like we hear a lot of psychics and medical intuitives do. Mine's the exact opposite.
Interesting. Do you have an idea why that is? Maybe what you're doing differently that they're not, or you know what I mean? Do you have any logic behind that? Like what I just mentioned, I reach this level of vibration, that's spirit, because when our spirits are attached to our bodies having a human experience, Brandon, we vibrate more slowly simply because the body has mass. And so it slows down the vibration. So by raising my vibrational level to the level of spirit, I'm vibrating so high that it has a human effect on my body in that it's energizing. People that listen to my show have told me over the years, and somebody did last night actually on the show that I just recorded, they say, I can be in a bad mood or be depressed or whatever, and I listen to your show, and even without paying attention to what the questions are or what you're talking about, I just feel better. And I say that's because my energy level's so cranked because I'm, connecting with people all over that that people are going to resonate with that when they listen to me or talk to me. Yeah, I feel that. It's like, I don't know if you've heard this term, Sohbet. It's like a transference of energy from you to them, and, using words and otherwise. And I feel I definitely resonate strongly with that, because even with this show with Positive Head, I hear that sort of thing all the time about, the effect that the show has had on people's lives, and how, and if I miss an episode, which every now and then, especially lately with the, preparing for this new show, I've skipped a few episodes, and people are like, I don't know what to do. It's not there in the morning when I wake up, and what happened. And so I definitely feel that. It's like, I can even be, and it doesn't happen a lot, but some days I'm like, I really don't feel quite like, recording. But
Right.
I'm obligated to. I'm going to, and then. But as soon as I get into that state, I elevate my state. All of a sudden, so much is channeling through me. I feel like so much energy, and I feel like that is the success that this show has had comes from this transference of energy. It's like it's more than just the words that are being said. I'm emitting this same energy that has served me so well in my own life and given me just such a wonderful life and so many blessings and magic that continues to unfold. And it feels very much well beyond what I'm saying and the state that I'm sort of resonating in.
Well, I agree. And I think we all do that naturally when we're all in human form, because Brandon, we've all walked into rooms and we've thought, oh, this feels creepy in here. Or we meet somebody, or we are around a group of people and we think, I just feel down, or I feel like my energy is depleted, or it just felt creepy. And we're all doing the same thing. So we're just not conscious about it. So those of us that are working with the public, especially in this woo-woo field, by raising our vibrational level, really high. And again, it's not something that we learn. It's something that's transferred to us. And that's what I do that's what I teach in my classes is I transfer that energy to my students. And then their lives not only unfold in all these magical ways, to do whatever they want to do, if they want to be a healer or a pet psychic or whatever. But the thing that is consistent with everybody that's gone through my class, Brandon, is that they all tell me they live a life of joy that they didn't know was attainable, number one. And number two, they don't do anything for it. They just, their life has unfolded and they're just joyful most of the time. And when they're not joyful, they know how to get back to being joyful, because I teach that. But that's the one consistent thing that people keep telling me. Oh my God, I am, regardless of age. And some people are, they're retired and they're doing this stuff, and they'll say, I've lived 70 years and I've never felt this sense of joy that's just consistent regardless of what's happening or unfolding in my life. And that's why we're all here. What the heck?
Yes, that is the formula. That's, I love hearing how all the success that you're having transferring that energy to in person, because, I'm just about to launch into doing retreats with, I'm doing this new show, Optimistic, and people are going to come stay at the Mystic Manor. And my whole aim as I've been talking to people is like, look, we want our aim, me and the wonderful, magical people helping to facilitate your experience. Our aim is to give you that Sohbet experience, a transference of energy. Whatever we're resonating with, we want to hand off in some way to you. So it's really interesting that, you're talking about that being the experience that you're having one-on-one with people. I think that's going to be sort of this, it feels to me like that's going to become more and more of a theme with people who are sort of in a leadership role, if you will. And of course, we all take turns playing student and teacher, but, in this case, it's like people are coming to have a particular experience, and that is the primary underlying intention is, I want them to come in for the ultimate spiritual tune-up. They come to the Mystic Manor, they stay for the week, they get to be on the live taping of Optimistic, they leave, and it's like, I don't know what I caught there, but it's like, it's rippling out in my life in a way that is just inexplicable and reflective of sort of how magical my life is, right?
That's right.
And so I, that is the vision for me with the Mystic Manor and the retreats for those who come. So I love hearing that. That's what that's a sort of sounds like what you're experiencing already with your in-person work with people.
Right, and it's not even in person; it's online.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, I thought you were meeting with them
online.
physically.
So the last class I did a couple months ago, I had people in 4 countries. So it's in a virtual classroom. We all see each other, but it's 4 Saturdays, and it's 2 hours on 4 Saturdays, and it's all online.
Oh, wow.
And then the classes are recorded, so they have playback. Video recording, so they have playback.
Wow. And it seems like, anything. I mean, even doing readings and things, like, it's not necessary to be physically there. But do you agree that there's something like a little extra about being able to be with someone physically. You know, I know, like, I think of, I don't quote the Bible too often, but I know there's a scripture, something of, you know, when two or more are gathered, you know, I am there, or something, you know, God speaking in one of the verse, something like that. And obviously, yeah, a lot of magic happens remotely. I mean, all the effect of this show has been remote, right? But you know, I feel like it sort of almost takes it even to another level. If I could sit and I'm curious what your take is. Is there any difference when you're giving a reading to someone? If you know, someone's sitting there, your ability to connect and everything, or is it the exact same for you, whether they're remote or in person?
It's exactly the same for me. And 99.99999% of my sessions are done remotely. But to your point about that Bible verse, where there are two or more gathered in my name, I believe that's in spirit form. And also another Bible verse that I use a lot is, and I am like you, I'm not a Bible thumper by any means,
right?
But even though
there's some great wisdom in there too.
I live in Birmingham, Alabama, which is like the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Interesting. Yeah. That's a very interesting place for you to be posted
but
up.
I lived in LA for a long time. And then moved to Nashville, and then I've been here for 20 years, and I love it. But anyways, with the passage in the Bible, Brandon, that talks about we're made in the image and likeness of God, and most of us, I think, are brought up to think that God looks like Father Time, some old man wearing a white gown with white hair,
guy with a long beard.
Exactly, long beard. And that's not my perception. What I perceive is that we're made in the image and likeness of God in spirit form. We all have a spark of the divine. And what I have learned and what I have experienced for the past 25 years of doing this work, 25 plus years now of doing this work, is that like God, who we're taught is in spirit form and is everywhere all at the same time, I can be anywhere I want to be in spirit form by raising my vibrational level to the level of spirit. And speaking of Bewitched, it reminds me of when I was a little girl and I watched Bewitched. And Samantha Stevens would twinkle her nose and then she'd be in another location. Well, I can do that. And I do it real time. I do it past, like doing instant replays on a football game, you know, when you're watching on TV. Yeah. I can do future stuff. I can do any of it. I do it a lot when someone is in surgery and their loved ones are in touch with me. And so I can be remotely in surgery with the person who's being operated on. I can tell you how many surgeons are working on them, you know, what they're doing, where they are during the surgery. Wow. I can read the anesthesia equipment. I can tell you, you know, their heart rate, their all that kind of stuff. And I can describe all the deceased loved ones who are in the room with them to add support. And the guardian angel always flies over the head of anesthesia, Brandon. And so it's just a riot when I do that. So I can do it real time. It's called remote viewing. And so I'm saying you raise your vibration level to the level of spirit, and you got like this whole plethora of a whole new world that you can access. And that's what I like to teach people to do is don't be so set on you do A, B, C, D, E to do something. I think that puts people in a box. What I tend to be more inclined to do, and what I do with my students is I say, look, I'm going to get you to that level and let's let it unfold organically and naturally for you based on what your interests are, because you're going to have techniques that are going to work for you that may not be what I do. These work for me, but let's find out what works for you. And it's incredible the different methodologies that people come up with on their own. And we understand that as entrepreneurs. You know, we go outside of the box. Yeah, we think outside of the box.
Right. Wow. Yeah, to me it was as I mentioned at the beginning, it was I had to smile really big when I saw, oh my gosh, I sat in front of my computer. I forgot I have an interview that's not like me, because it's on a day it typically isn't, and so many other things going on. And then I looked at who it was and what it was about, and started to prep a little. And I'm like, okay, this is obviously divinely timed. In the last 24 hours, I've thought to myself, I need to find a medical intuitive. I've had so many magical, amazing guests on the show over the years. I've never had a medical intuitive. The other thing, it's more than just one layer. So I don't know. I think it was a week ago today. I don't know. Did you hear about the shootings in Virginia Beach?
By any chance? Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Tragic.
So I'm originally from Virginia, moved to Nashville, and then to LA area. So we have some similar trajectory there. But originally from Virginia, 2006 or so, I was in Virginia for holiday, visiting my family. My brother was living there at the time. I met a wonderful young lady one evening. I leave, come back to California. My brother and her, because, of that happening, end up becoming boyfriend and girlfriend. It's his first very serious relationship. They're together 2 years. One of the sweetest, smartest girls. She's studying engineering at the time. He ends up moving back out here. They break up. She was one of the victims in the shooting.
No.
Yeah, she was like my mom, who's never been a fan of really either of our girlfriends over the years. Well, a couple, but that was like her. She just loved this girl, Tara. Like, she's like instantly like family. She almost looks like family, like, and they're so devastated that, her and my brother didn't stay together. And it was really my brother, the reason that it didn't, continue forward. It probably would have. Well, who knows for sure. But anyway, so what was interesting for me, Julie, is the night before I found out, I didn't find out till last Saturday. So, and I woke up to a text from my mom, like, call me, and Friday at 2 a.m, I woke up for the first time, feeling like a spirit was at my bed. Like, it startled me awake. Like, it was a in my head, all I knew was it was like a blondish, because I remember having like dirty blonde hair. It looks more brown in the pictures now, but it was like, a little bit blondish, brownish. And in my dream state, as I woke up scared and jutted my arm out to push the person away, it was, okay, who is this blondish woman? And then I went back to sleep. I was like, okay, that's never happened to me before. And that was weird. And I don't know what that was. And, few hours later, I wake up and check my phone, and it's a text, and I hear that she passed. There was a bunch of signs after that for me. That day, I was feeling like I was communicating with her, and she was telling me like, oh, wow, this is incredible. I'm like, how we can talk to ourselves in our head, and I'm just like kind of driving in that zoned out mode, which kind of hypnotic mode anyway. And I felt like I imagined her like the Macaulay Culkin face, like wow, it's so incredible over here. And then a license plate got in front of me, just wow, instantly right after that. And it just went on. I called my brother and saying we're all family. And then a family tree appeared on the next license plate. And it was, many layers. So fast forward to last night. Okay. That all happened last weekend. Last night. And my brother and family are still kind of reeling from it. And my brother sends me a funny video, like a Facebook video, just like something really silly, a woman doing crazy dancing in the street, right? So I get a text from him with a link, and it says Facebook. Well, I go to click that link. Well, hold on. Let me back up. So a few days ago, I did an episode on Positive Head all about death. And, and I talked about Tara and that experience and shared, the stories and my perspective on death. And I play music at the end of my daily episodes when I don't have a guest like this. And I played a song by Noah Gunderson called Send the Rain to everyone, in parentheses, and it's the most beautiful song about death you could ever hear. It is just so moving. And so I played it on the outro. Well, that was maybe 2-3 days ago. Last night, before this, you and I get on here this morning, my brother sends me a Facebook video, like just something silly. I go to click it. It opens my Spotify music player and starts playing that song.
Yeah.
Now, and my brother's named Ryan, by the way. And I've been saying, and this, you're Julie Ryan. I've had in my head all week this Julie Ann of Norwich quote. All shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. And it's been in my head, and I've just been saying it for some reason. So I noticed that too. I'm like, oh, here's Julie, and Ryan is my brother. But so it was the weirdest thing, though. It's like and I was watching a show at the time where angels, a funny show where angels were taking over communications on the planet. And so and then all of a sudden I get this text and I click and it's a Facebook link that goes into a totally different app and opens that song, which I hadn't even ever opened on my phone, certainly not in, I don't know, a year or something, and starts playing that song. So I felt like, so that's all happened in the recent hours. And here you are. I'd forgotten I'm talking to, someone who communicates with the other side. And I've been thinking incessantly, I really need to find a medical intuitive for, an issue I'll bring up in a minute. But, yeah, so, wow. I just was like, so big smile on my face when I saw who I was talking to today.
Oh, I love it. Well, and the part that you're leaving out is I wrote a book about what happens when we die and what's happening as we're dying, and how we're surrounded by angels and deceased loved ones. So, that's part of the synchronicity of all this too. I would say you're in the zone, my man. You're in the zone.
Yeah.
Being able to
seems to be opening up.
That dream that you had about Tara, and my condolences on that. That dream that you had about Tara, Brandon, did it feel like the colors were extra vivid and your senses were heightened and any of that?
Honestly, it didn't. It was almost like it was so jarring to me, and I got scared from it. You know what I mean? So it was very brief because I'd never. One other time, my deceased grandmother, I felt like I communicated with in the dream state, and it had like it had like an interesting quality to it. When I came out of the dream, I was like, okay, she seemed otherworldly, and that sort of thing, and then I heard as I was waking up, I heard her tell me, she said something to me, and it woke me up. So I felt like I communicated with her one other time, but it was like started as a dream, and then that in between state where I hear a message sometimes as I'm waking up, and but this was more like going from normal state. It was like jarring. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have time to even experience her because I sat up and jetted my arm out and was like, like, who are you? What's going on? Who's at my bed? Like if someone comes and wakes you up physically in your room, it would could really scare you and you react. It was I kind of did that. So I had no time to really take her in other than blondish female, is all my brain thought.
Well, the reason why I bring it up is because when we have dreams, and I talk to people about this a lot, including my own family members, when we have dreams where it's almost like we're watching it in super high D and the colors are vibrant, and sometimes you'll feel like the hair on your back of your neck or on your arms is standing up and your senses are heightened. That's a visit. That's not a dream. I got that Tara visited you. That was a visit. It wasn't a dream. Yeah, and that's how you tell the difference. When it's a dream, it's just regular and you're not necessarily likely to remember it unless you're one of those people that wake up and immediately start writing down what you dreamt about. Because most of us will have a dream and then we remember it for about 5 minutes and then we get on with our day and then we're thinking, okay, what was that dream about? We're not able to recall it. But I believe that was a visit from Tara. The other thing I'm being led, I'm in Deep South, so I can talk like I'm being led to tell you.
y'all, I'm being led.
Hey, it's great to be with all y'all. Not just y'all. It's all y'all. All y'all. My husband's from here, which is why I'm here. People say, how did you end up in Alabama? And I say, love.
Love led me.
You'll love this because I know you love synchronicity things. I met him standing behind him in line in the Kansas City airport.
What? Wow, how cool.
and his back was to me, and he's a big ex-football player, and I had this desire to put my arms around him and start hugging on him, Brandon, and I hadn't even seen his face yet, and I thought, oh God, Ryan, you're just tired, go home and go to bed. And then he turned around, and we started talking, and we were on Southwest, so we sat together on the plane, and then I married him a year later, and I've been in Alabama ever since. And by the way, I have everything in my garden here that I had when I lived in LA, so it's not climate-wise, it's pretty similar, actually. A little more humid at times, but that's why God made air conditioning, you know?
Yes, exactly.
So what I'm being led to tell you is how to communicate with spirit. And anybody can do this, Brandon, and we all do it without recognizing what we're doing. And just for your listeners' benefit, you probably already know this, but what you do is you say something to the person who's deceased with whom you want to communicate, whether it's a loved one or whether it's Julius Caesar or Ben Franklin or whomever, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You say something, you either ask a question or you make a statement. And the first thing that comes into your mind after you make that statement or question, within a second, is going to be that person communicating with you. Spirits communicate telepathically. A lot of people think they're going to hear grandma's voice, and some people do. Most people don't. Most people just get a thought, and they mistakenly judge that as, oh, that's just my brain. Well, it is your brain if you're waiting a couple of seconds and a thought's coming in. But it's immediate. A lot of the times the answer or the response will come in as the question or the statement is happening before it's even done. And you can either do it aloud or you can do it in your head. The one thing that you want to remember, though, is that spirits are really literal. So you want to be as concise and specific as you can be when you're talking to the deceased. And all spirits are pure love and light. So they're always going to give you the correct response, an applicable response. Where it comes in is how we interpret it. So if it's something that's really life-changing, like last night on my show, a gal called in and she asked, one of the questions that she asked was, is it in my best interest to move to this new city with my husband because our marriage isn't great and it's an hour away and I'm going to have to get a different job and stuff like that. And so we kept dialing down that question to be sure it was really specific. And then we asked different nuances about the question so we could get her really, really concise advice, because that's such a life-altering decision that she's trying to make. So that's the key is it's the response is going to come in within a second, and be sure that you're really specific how you're asking the question. An example of that would be, is it in my best interest to buy a new car? Well, that's pretty general. And you're going to get an answer. Is it in my best interest to buy a new car, buy a new, Chevy Malibu within the next week? That's more where you want to be.
I see.
To get information and guidance that's going to be applicable in your life right now. Because spirits are always going to give you an answer, but should I buy a new car? Well, yeah, when? Now, next week, in 5 years, in 20 years?
A Ferrari or a Chevy Cobalt?
So be as specific as you can be, and everybody can do this. Everybody has the ability.
Right. And I imagine a big part of this is learning to just really trust what's coming through. And the more you do, the more accurate and it will be. I mean, would you say that's a fair statement?
Absolutely. And I tell people we'll practice it on my show, like with this gal last night that's looking to move. We practiced it and we asked questions, and I'd say, okay, what do you get? Here's what I get. But the other thing I always say is practice it on stuff that doesn't matter. Like, is it in my best interest to eat that chocolate chip cookie or that oatmeal raisin cookie? And it doesn't really matter in the big scope of life, but you're going to get an answer. And then I use it when I'm stuck in traffic. I was driving back to Birmingham on Sunday from Atlanta. I was over there for the Food and Wine Festival with a girlfriend. And, and we were stuck on Interstate 20, didn't move for an hour. And I 4 lanes of traffic heading west. And I thought, oh my gosh. And she had to drive back to Louisville. So I wanted to get home so she could go on to Louisville time wise. So I got I was asking, is it in my best interest to try and maneuver off and get off at an exit and go back roads? And I got a yes. Well, Brandon, I'm in the fast lane. There are 3 lanes of traffic to my right.
Right.
So
Right.
there was a trucker next to me. My girlfriend leaned out of the window and she waved at him. She said, can we get in front of you? So I turned perpendicular to the truck, crossed 2 other lines of traffic, got off, and the traffic wasn't moving that fast, even on the back roads. But we saved ourselves 2 hours by doing that.
Wow.
So the guidance is applicable in any area of our lives, and to learn to trust it. Because I'm looking at this traffic going, how in the name of God am I going to get over when there's this 18-wheeler next to me? And I just said to my friend, see if you could talk to this truck driver to fill. He made enough space for me to go, perpendicular to the front of his truck and then cross 2 lanes of traffic. So, yeah.
Wow. So do you have, so for someone who's new at this, who would you tell them to address when, okay, I'm going to ask the question, and should I choose a deceased loved one? If there is someone that was close to me that happens to be there, should I just say my spirit guides? Let's say someone hasn't ever had a formal introduction to their spirit guide. How would you approach this as a novice?
I believe that it makes the most sense for us to just access God, the universe, our spirit guides, our deceased loved ones, our angels, the whole group. Let's just get the whole group involved here as an advisory council.
We need all the help we can get. We're agreeing.
Exactly. So, just because your grandmother, you were really close to your grandmother, it doesn't mean she's the most enlightened spirit in the, in creation.
Right.
So let's just bring in all guidance. And I always train people and suggest people to start with questions, especially if it's on a big life event, is it in my best interest to ... Finish the question.
Right.
Is it in someone's best interest? Is it in Brandon's best interest too? Is it in, my dog Sparky's best interest too? ... And then the information's going to come in. And the thing about future events, Brandon, is that anything that's happening in the future is fluid because there's so many variables that come into play that will affect an outcome.
So many
Stuff
timelines,
that's happened in the past is set. Things that are happening in this moment are set. Things in the future are fluid. So I tell people, if you ever see a psychic or a tarot card reader or something like that, and who say, well, my accuracy rate is 100%, run the other direction.
Wrong.
Because there's no way they can say that, because something may depend on weather. It may depend on another person making a decision that affects 14 other people's decision that affects your outcome. It's just fluid. So when I say, is it in my best interest to, that encompasses all those variables. Instead of just saying, should I? Well, should, whose opinion is that? There's no should. It's like, is it in my best interest to? And then you trust that it's going to unfold perfectly as it always does.
Right. My take on that whole phenomenon of what the future is like. And, I love that you said that, because that's always the skeptics, ridiculous sort of argument. Oh, okay. You have psychic ability. What number am I thinking right now? And if you don't get it right, then you have no ability. It's like, first off, this is such a nuanced thing that's happening, reading energy. Second, it's like when you understand the perspective that, God, source, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is infinite, and there's infinite variables and timelines. And, I say it like this, our life is what happens at the corner of free will and destiny. Right. I say it's destined because it's already happened. Time is an illusion. And, that's how you're even accessing these future potentials, because, it's all there now. Just like the past is happening in the eternal now on another, sort of like my 5th birthday party is happening on another channel, I believe. I'm just not tuned into that channel, right? And same with the future potentials.
But you could be.
But you could be. And then
Right.
so that's where destiny comes in, right? Free will comes in as you get to determine what version of the future you step into out of all the potentials with your energetic offering now, right? With your vibrational offering now. So your life plays out at the corner of free will and destiny. Your aim is to experience the greatest and grandest version of yourself from this moment forward. No matter how unlikely it may be statistically or any of that, Source is infinite and has played out every possibility and has already been there, done that, and gotten the t-shirt, as I like to put it. So when you start understanding, this perspective is what empowers me so much. It's like, no matter how grandiose or magical, I may envision it, and it may seem unlikely from one perspective, from another, it's me just getting into vibrational alignment with that version of reality and stepping into, you be it to see it. You be it vibrationally, and that's what sort of ultimately calls you, you're sort of navigating potential timelines in this way, seamlessly. You don't realize you've stepped into something different from moment to moment. Bashar talks about like moment to moment where we're sifting timelines with our vibrational offering. And to me, that idea and concept really resonates as to how it's structured. I'm curious what you think about that.
I completely agree. And an analogy that I use a lot, Brandon, is we're all on the yellow brick road. And the yellow brick road only goes one direction, and it's toward the Emerald City, which is the analogy would be heaven or nirvana or whatever you want to call it. And everything unfolds perfectly. And we're all wearing ruby slippers or ruby shoes. It doesn't matter. We all have the power. And you can step on a brick, and the brick may land you in a field of blooming poppies, and it's pleasant. Or you may step on another brick and it lands you in a haunted castle being chased by flying monkeys, and it's pretty scary. It doesn't matter what the experience is. We're all on the path to experience. Every experience is not good or bad. It's just an experience in the spirit world. We expand from every experience, and it leads to another inspiration. So you step on another brick, but it's always closer to the Emerald City, closer to heaven, closer to nirvana. And I completely agree with your assessment of all of that. The yellow brick road example as an analogy is something that people can grasp, okay, it doesn't matter which of the yellow bricks I step on, it's all leading me in the future. It's all my destiny. It's all where I'm heading. Yeah, you can't lose. Absolutely. And I think if we can stay in Switzerland and stay neutral to what is happening and what's unfolding in our lives and trust that it's all unfolding perfectly. And our human minds don't have, the capacity to envision all the potential outcomes. To your point with the destiny and free will intersection. But if we trust that it's just all unfolding perfectly, it helps us live a more joyful life.
Absolutely.
And it's a habit that we assimilate into. I mean, it's a habit. And here's
training your brain.
Here's a little tidbit that's helpful is if you are feeling really crummy, like mad, angry, sad, in depression, whatever. If soon as you say, okay, this is happening for me, wonder how, and you go to curiosity, Brandon, when you go to curiosity, it raises your vibrational level.
Love it.
Lets you access inspirational thoughts. Because when we're feeling crappy because we're depressed or whatever, it's like we're on a hamster wheel and we keep pulling in other thoughts. To your point earlier, depends on what vibration you're on, what thoughts are that you're pulling in. So if you go to curiosity when you're feeling badly, it immediately raises your vibrational level. You'll know it because you're going to immediately feel better. And those are the thoughts that you want to act on. You never want to act on a thought when you're in a depressed or sad or mad state, because those are not inspirational. Those are just part of this hamster wheel you're on. But that's a really easy trick. That's a really easy tool or trick to use.
It's a great tool.
It just gets you right out of it.
Yeah. So what? Yeah. To expand on that, it's like, so if you are in that state and you have a low vibrational thought, something that doesn't feel good and you don't want more of, but then you sort of, it's like, oh, all these thoughts are passing by like clouds. I'm going to grab onto that one. And then, well, what will happen is then you attract one that's similar, and then you attract one that's similar. And then you've sort of taken the bait of all the potentials you can go down, and it builds and builds and builds, right? And this is how we get into that negative snowball, if you will. And I love what you're saying, because it's a disruptor. It's like, what if I move into curiosity right now? I understand, even though I feel like crap in this moment, I understand this is happening for me and not to me. A master is someone who embraces whatever shows up because they know it's exactly what they need to lead them to the next greatest and grandest version of themselves. So if you understand that just from a theoretical standpoint, it's like, okay, even though I feel like crap, I know this truth, and I know it's happening for me, not to me. So, where to go from here? Then you bring in I'm curious as to what the gift is at the end of this particular little path, this little stint I'm on. And now you've all of a sudden changed the vibrational course. You didn't grab onto, how poor me, I lost my job, poor me, whatever it is. You've opened up a whole different path to lead it down that I instantly feel, as you said, choose curiosity. It's like, oh, it's like the perfect path out, instead of continuing to follow that sort of negative chain of thoughts and feelings.
Right. It's like when you're in your car and you're listening to the radio and you've got the radio on the blues station and you're feeling depressed and all of that. Well, you switch it to the disco station or something that's music that immediately changes how you feel. And it's the same. Yep. It's the same thing. Yeah, I absolutely agree completely.
Very, very cool. I love that. Curiosity, everyone. Stay curious, folks.
That's right.
All right. Well, now seems like a good moment to take a quick minute to tell those of you who aren't familiar a bit about our sponsor, Gaia. I've been a big fan of Gaia for many years now, which is why they're the only content provider I've ever reached out to in regards to potentially supporting this podcast. So needless to say, I'm very excited they're now supporting the show. Gaia truly is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web. They have an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. Just to give you an example, on the show Missing Links, the incredible researcher Greg Braden explores all the biggest questions concerning who we are, where we come from, where we're going, by connecting the missing links between science and spirituality to complete our understanding of humanity's history and to better understand the interconnectedness of all things. Awesome, right? And that's just one example. As you guys constantly hear me say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to go deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Hey, speaking of staying curious, so one thing I'm really curious about is what really happens on the other side as we transition. As you know, we've touched on a little bit your book. What angelic attendance, what really happens as we transition from this life. I've read a little bit on this show in the past, and I kind of stopped reading from it because I gave it away to someone, and I need to order another copy. Mm-hmm. But the book Journey of Souls by Michael Newton, I imagine you're familiar, and it's are you familiar with his work?
I'm not, but I'll check it out.
I think he wrote two books, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. And basically what he's a hypnotherapist who are taking people back and regressing them, past lives. And then they would die. And then he would say, okay, now what? And then they went into what their experience was transitioning and sort of the structure of things on that side and how the soul families and groups work together and the different, energetic colors that they are represented by as they make their way through physicality and continue to level up in this game. And it's just a very fascinating, he's very scientific in his approach of putting people under and then getting their assessment, of what's going on the other side as they transition between, life between lives, if you will. And, So I'm curious what your take is, because that's not a topic that's talked about, very often, right? Right. And I'd love to just hear a little bit about your book and what you perceive.
My my take is different from most of the books that are out there. Frankly, I wasn't really able to find anything that really correlated with my book, in that my book talks about what's happening as we're dying, not so much about what happens on the other side. And what I find, Brandon, is that so many people are afraid of dying. They're afraid of the process because we've been so inundated in cultures and religions that a lot of people worry for a lot of their lives about when they die, are they going to fly or fry? I mean, it's just as simple as that. And so the first time I saw what happens was when my own mother was dying. And that's one of the chapters in the book. And she was surrounded by angels and deceased loved ones. And these deceased loved ones that showed up that I hadn't thought of in 25 years, like her former boss, who was a priest. She was a principal of a Catholic grade school. And our deceased dog's spirits were in the room and all this other stuff. I'm like, holy moly. And the best thing that I can equate this to is I was raised Roman Catholic, Brandon, 12 years at Catholic schools. And there's a prayer said at the end of every funeral, Catholic funeral, and it's called In Paradisum. And it talks about the angels and our loved ones will greet us and lead us into paradise. And I thought, holy moly, this is exactly what I'm watching unfold when my mother was dying.
Wow.
And when I was researching it for my book, the best I could find is that it originated as a 5th century Gregorian chant. And I have to believe that throughout the generations of human history, that people have been able to see telepathically and psychically what I'm able to see. And as we've become more well-educated and more scientifically and proof-based, we've tamped down a lot of those abilities. But I believe they're all natural abilities that we all have. And so I believe that certainly it's feasible that people have been able to see what I see with angels and deceased loved ones surrounding somebody when they're dying since the beginning of time. And perhaps it just took till the 5th century where there were scholars who were learned enough, and a lot of times they were in the monasteries, that they could read and write, and they could write this down and turn it into a chant that eventually became a prayer. And it talks in detail, about the angels and your loved ones will greet you and lead you into paradise. So after working with countless families over the years, Brandon, I've come up with what I call the 12 phases of transition. And they happen, they can happen instantly, or they can happen over days, weeks, months, years. And it's the configuration of how the angels and deceased loved ones are lined up around the person who's dying, and what's happening with the spirit, that I can connect to somebody who's dying anywhere in the world, and I will get a picture of one of those phases, and I'll be able to not only communicate with the person who's dying telepathically, but I'll know how close to death they are. If they're in phase 11 of 12, they're getting close. If they're in phase 3 or something, they're just getting started. And I can tell how close or how fast death is approaching for them based on how quickly they're going through the phases. So, for instance, somebody may be in phase 3 on Tuesday, and by Wednesday morning, they're in phase 11 or something like that. And it's interesting because in communicating with the person who's dying, I ask them 3 questions at least. The first one, these are the 3 questions I always ask, Brandon. The first one is, are you ready to go? They'll tell me yes or no. Are you in pain? And what do you need? And the what do you need can range from, I need my family around me. I need, there's stories in my book about working with many families and what their loved ones said they needed. But one of my favorite stories, and this was so random, Brandon, was this one man who was dying kept telling me to tell his daughter who had gotten me, involved. He kept saying, I need her to file my quarterly estimated taxes. He was saying, what?
That's the last thing I'm concerned about is Uncle Sam being able to buy another golden toilet.
No kidding. So this guy, I mean, for 2 weeks, he's off life support. He's in the ICU.
Oh,
he's not going.
man.
He's not going. And he's not going. He's in his late 80s. And so his daughter called me one day and she goes, okay. I'm like, what do I need to do to get him to go on? This is crazy. So I asked him, and he said, tell her to file my quarterly estimated taxes. So I said to her, just do it. I mean, what the heck? What do you have to lose? She said, I don't even know where they are. And he said, he told me, he said, they're in the desk in he was a widower, so he lived alone. They're in the desk in my bedroom, left middle drawer. I said, go to his house, go open that left middle drawer, see what happens. Guess what? The quarterly estimated taxes, the form was filled out, the check was there, the envelope was, ready to be sealed. It was stamped. She dropped it in the mailbox. Brandon, the man died within the hour of her mailing his quarterly estimated taxes.
He is a lot more passionate about paying his taxes than I am. I can tell you that.
He was a retired dentist, who probably had never even gotten a speeding ticket in his life. And, just that was his thing. But I'll hear things like, one little lady in Rome, Georgia, her family lives in Atlanta, and they had me involved. And she was an Alzheimer's patient and had not been able to communicate verbally for, 10 years. And she wanted the granddaughter who'd gotten me involved to go to her home and get her red missal. The girl said to me, what is she talking about? Missal. And I said, well, missal is another name for like a prayer book or a song book that you'd see in church. And she said, I don't even know where to look. So grandma says it's in my nightstand on the left side of my bed. And I'm not remembering the exact details, but that's where you'll find it in the drawer. So the granddaughter goes to grandma's house. She gets the missal. She comes back. Grandma tells me to tell the family who's all gathered, she wants them to sing Amazing Grace. So they're singing Amazing Grace. My legs are vibrating telling you about this story. I'm getting goosebumps from it. And grandma sang Amazing Grace with the family, Brandon. She hadn't talked in 10 years. She sang the song and she was dead within the hour.
Wow. Incredible.
So the whole book's full of just magical, serendipitous, seemingly. You and I know there are no coincidences in life. And then I also in the book go through what the 12 phases of transition are. And I find that it's very comforting, very informative for people. And it's a book that people give to loved ones who have someone in their family perhaps dying, or a spouse or a sibling or somebody. And also they give it a lot as a gift to people who've lost a loved one, not to mention just regular people reading it because they're interested about it. And it's unlike anything, to my knowledge, that's available, that's on the market. I haven't run into anybody that talks about this, but certainly there are lots of correlations from the near-death experience books, and it correlates with the experiences of going through a tunnel. There's angels that are on either side of the spirit. The spirit, as somebody's dying, holds on to the top of the head as they're dying, Brandon. It looks like a bubble in a cartoon caption where the words or the thoughts of the cartoon character are. And there are angels that in halfway through the dying process show up on either side of that spirit bubble, I call, and their wings start to move, and it creates an upward draft, a vortex, and it helps the spirit separate from the body. And when I was researching the book, I thought, okay, I always think it feels like a giant owl's wings. It's like the slow rhythmic movement that creates this vortex. It looks like a tornado cloud, above somebody's head as they're dying. And when I was researching it, I learned that there's endless information online about the wingtip vortex. And it's what helps any flying object, whether it's a bird or a plane or a jet or a kite or whatever, that vortex forms underneath the wing, and it causes lift.
Wow.
I was like, well, alrighty then. So
what a trip.
Lots of correlations. Can I tell you a quick story about how I even decided to release the book?
Sure. Of course.
My main spirit guide showed up one day when I was with my mentor in Nashville, and I go see her about once a quarter. and when she's doing a healing on me, I do healings on people all over the world, and she's the only one that zaps on me. So I'm in the room,
Yeah.
and a lot of times my spirit guides are in the room too, and sometimes deceased family members because they're helping with the healing. So one day this Pope shows up in like whole Pope outfit, the hat, the vestments, the staff, the red shoes, the whole 9 yards. And I said
Wow.
to him, his spirit, and Susan, my mentor, could see him. And I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm Pope Clement." And I said, "There was a Pope Clement?" And he laughed and he said, "Yeah, I was number 6." And I said, "Okay,
Oh, wow.
Can I help you?" And he said, "Yeah, you're supposed to teach the world what happens when people are dying, because everybody's so afraid to die, and it's ridiculous. They've just all been inundated with this nonsense over the millennia.
Right.
And that's one of your goals and one of your missions
To-dos.
on earth while you're in this
Yeah.
incarnation." And I said to him, "Brandon, you'll love this." I said, "No, you don't understand. I'm a businesswoman. I'm not doing that."
Yeah.
And he laughed and he said, Yeah. Well, all your business background and everything that you've experienced so far in your life has led you to this place where you have the wherewithal to do this, and you just need to do it and get on with it. So
Right. Wow.
I'm thinking, okay, fine. I leave Susan's office. I'm in my car. I'm ready to drive back to Birmingham. And I Googled Pope Clement VI. He was in office, Brandon, during the bubonic plague when 2/3 of Europe died. And he's best
Wow.
known for his prayers for the dying and his prayers for the dead.
Wow.
And
What
I'm
a
thinking-
trip.
I'm thinking, Ryan, you can't make this stuff up, number one. And
Wow.
number two, it took me 7 years to get the courage to release this information because I thought, I live in the deep south. I'm going to have the Klan burning a cross in my front yard,
Right.
saying, this woman's possessed or something. I thought I'm going to have a bunch of men in, white KKK outfits on horseback burning a cross in my front yard. And so,
That's so great.
I've released the book a couple of years ago, and it's been so overwhelming, the response. It's even being used as curriculum in Sunday school classes around the world.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. And anybody can see the 12 Phases of Transition. If they just go to my website, askjulieryan.com, the graphics are on the website. Anybody can look at them just by going to my website.
That's pretty amazing. You know what I love is I love always seeing sort of the threads of connectivity. Obviously, me having spending a lot, living 4 years, I guess, in Nashville, and you keep referring to yourself by your last name, Ryan. That's my brother's name.
Yeah.
Your teacher there is Susan. That's my mom's name. It's like there's so many
I lived in LA
cool
for 15 years.
Yep,
My son
yep,
lives there now. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Speaking of, okay, so this leads into my next question, actually. Well, because I had someone on a while back, and I forget his name off the top of my head. But before we started, he said, Brandon, just FYI, you and I have some past life stuff that I'm clearing first. And he went into that. He goes, and he's like, about 20% of your guests you have significant past life with, interactions with. So, I always, of course, think of that whenever I'm like, oh, who is this person to me? Are they one of the 20% where I have some significant history with? What was that like? I'm very fascinated by the idea of past lives. And I know that's something that a lot of people are. And I know that's something that you tap into as well. And, I had someone recently come up to me in a casino of all places and start rattling off past lives to me. You'd think it'd be on the show, but, and that was a really cool experience. I'm curious, what your take is on past lives and how they sort of affect what's going on now and just, what you want to share about them in general.
Yeah, past lives are really interesting. And as I've mentioned a couple of times, I do all this stuff. I'm a buffet of psychicness, for lack of a better word. And I think
I love that.
I think I say on my show that I help people by providing comfort and insight and information in helping to answer life's unanswerable questions. And whether that be medical or past life or dying loved one or whatever. And I think on the past life thing, how I interpret it, Brandon, is that we have themes, kind of a main storyline that we take from life to life through a series of lives to have different experiences around a theme. And then we have different settings, almost like a movie script. A Star is Born, the new Gaga and Bradley Cooper movie, that's been made 3 other times with different characters in different settings, but it's still the basic storyline that they've just, redone to update and all of that. So I find that is very applicable over multiple lifetimes. The other thing that's interesting is I find that when I'm doing a medical scan on somebody, I do 3 things, and then you'll see how I bring this back. You'll think, where's she going with this? But I promise I'll wrap it back around. We're all spirits attached to a body having a human experience, and it's energy. And energy, if it's going to be used for a specific purpose, like powering a body, which is what our spirit does. That's why when somebody dies and the spirit exits the body doesn't work anymore, because it doesn't have a power source. Energy, if it's going to be used for a specific purpose, Brandon, needs to be in some type of a container. Like electricity coming into our homes is contained in a wire, right?
Yep.
Natural gas and pipes, on and on and on. So the container for the energy that is our body and our spirit, which is all holographic, is what I call the energy field membrane. That's the container. It reminds me of really thin, stretchy saran wrap or plastic wrap. So the best analogy I've come up with for this is, imagine you go to the pet store and you buy a goldfish. They're going to put that fish in a plastic bag of water in order for you to get it home. So if you have a picture of that in your mind's eye, the goldfish represents our body. The water represents our spirit, because our body's inside our spirit. That's our aura. That's our energy field. That's the halo you see around holy people depicted in paintings.
Right.
So the water is our spirit, and the plastic bag is our energy field membrane. When there's a tear in that membrane or a hole, it happens from an emotional event, either in this lifetime or a past lifetime, that's caused an energy block. The energy block causes a blowout in the membrane. The body leaks energy. Always precedes any kind of medical condition. Always. 1,000,000% of the time. When somebody has that, and most of us do after the age of about 12, I'll go as part of a healing, we'll like fix their liver or their broken bone or whatever on the human level energetically with healings. But then perhaps the most important part of a healing as I do it is, let's fix that membrane so the body's working on full power so it can return to health. So I go into that hole or that tear, Brandon, and I'm shown some kind of a scene. I would say probably 25% of the time, it's a past life that I'm shown.
Wow.
And I'm given the date, I'm given the, where it was, what they were doing. And then we correlate it with how that is affecting their current life. And there's always that main theme that we were talking about before, like the script of the movie. There's always that main theme. And then I'm able to remove that one little nuance that is causing whatever to happen in their life. And, they're not even cognizant of it. They don't even know it, but it's having an effect on their life, and it's past life experience that's affecting this lifetime. And so it's fascinating what comes up and the correlations. There's always
and the fact that you can help heal it energetically is that's a whole other, it's one thing to perceive it, and it's another thing to say, okay, let's patch you up, right?
Absolutely.
Like, that's incredible.
So that, just by illuminating that, it fixes the energy field membrane. And unlike psychotherapy, where they want you to rehash the same trauma for 30 years, I'm not saying there isn't a place for psychotherapy. There certainly is, but let's just cut to the chase and fix it. And the thing that's so funny about this, Brandon, my visuals when I'm doing healings are like, I'm like a human MRI. I mean, I see broken bones, torn ligaments, viral infections, bacterial infections, cancer, metastasized stuff. I use stem cell energy to regenerate new body parts, new organs, new bone matter, whatever. And so when I'm clearing somebody's past life memory, that one little nuance that's affecting this current life comes out of the pores, and it looks like royal blue vapor. And I laugh. I tell them, I say, you look like a big chia pet, but instead of having bean sprouts coming out of you, you got blue vapor coming out of you. And it clears it, and then they feel a difference, and it helps them heal. And I'm really descriptive when I'm doing a medical intuitive, scan and healing, which is probably 95% of the work that I do.
Right.
I'm very descriptive in what I'm seeing and very descriptive in analogies so the person can picture in their mind's eye what I'm seeing and what the healing is that's happening. Because, the body is always going to follow what the brain tells it, even if the brain doesn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
We've all watched a scary show or been in a scary movie and something happens and intellectually we know it's just a movie, it's not real, but our heart is feeling like it's going to jump out of our chest or,
Right.
Scared out of our minds or whatever. So even though we know it's not real, our body is reacting to what we see. So when I describe to people and I get them to envision what I'm seeing in the scans and also the healings, it helps their body heal because the body's going to follow what the brain tells it or what the brain shows it. And it's amazing the healings that happen.
Well, you had mentioned at the top of this, before we turned on the recording, that you would be so gracious as to do a reading. If it resulted in a healing, I think I would do backflips here and now. But I have two. First off, thank you. Second off, I'm excited. I don't know what the process is to get started, but if I should tell you what I have, basically two issues that are, definitely challenging and annoyance and not major, like some people have major things like cancer or whatever, you know what I mean? But two things that really have continued for a long period of time to cause me issues. And one of them is sort of even timely with me doing a new show and all that. So, I don't know what the process would be, but I would absolutely love. And this is a big synchronicity because I've literally been thinking in the last week, Brandon, how have I not had a medical intuitive on yet? Like I need to go find one, seek one out. And then lo and behold, here you are. I completely had no idea we were even talking, having friends today, not like me, but even then I don't a lot of times see who I'm talking to that day until the morning of, because, I get hundreds of requests to be on the show, and I sort of follow my intuition on who to sort of bring on, or or the people that I proactively seek as well. So I don't even remember. Probably months back, I got an email or something and sent it over to my booking manager. This looks interesting. Check it out. And here you are. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for showing up. And you tell me what the process is. But I essentially have two things that I would love some assistance with.
So what I do is I raise my vibrational level to the level of spirit. It takes me a nanosecond to do it. Turn it on. I turn on my radar, I call it. I'm going to close my eyes, Brandon. I'm going to watch a laser beam come from my body here in Sweet Home, Alabama. It's going to hook into you in Costa Mesa. And then I'm going to have a hologram of you in my mind's eye. It's going to be as if I'm, in a Star Trek movie with you. Beam me up, Scotty.
Wow. Wow.
I'm going to have a hologram of you. And then I'm going to shoot energy from your feet up through the top of your head. And it will be as if I'm looking at an MRI or a CT scan or an X-ray. And the energy always goes where it's most needed first. It's just after doing this for over 25 years, I just trust where it goes. Even if it's asymptomatic, Brandon, a lot of times we're heading something off at the pass that's going to be problematic. And so what happens from there are three things. Number one, there's a identification of something. Number two, immediately after something's identified, there will be some type of energetic healing that will commence. It can take the form of something getting added, something getting sucked out. I watch procedures happen all day long that emulate what I saw in operating rooms for 30 years. I also see procedures happen that utilize methodologies and devices that I don't believe have been invented yet. And as an inventor, that's fun. But I think,
I bet,
like Pope Clement told me, all the stuff that I've done in my lifetime this far, I know what the instruments are in these energetic surgery procedures are. I mean, I know the devices. It's just happening in warp speed. And so I'm going to describe to you what I'm seeing. And then the third part is, like I said, the most important part is fixing that energy field membrane tear. And that's what I go through in an hour-long session when I do it, and I charge $155. I mean, I'm really affordable as medical intuitives go out there. So for time's sake today, this is what I do on the show. Tell me what's going on. I'll go right there, and then we'll see what's happening. We'll reverse engineer what's happening if need be, but there will be some type of a healing, and then you and I can talk at a later time, and I'll do a full-blown hour-long, scan. I'll be delighted to do that, and then we can really do a deep dive and see what's going on. But Brendan, I have so many people that come to me every week, all day long, who've been to multiple doctors over multiple years, and they're just not getting better, and it's just not working for them. And we're able to not only pinpoint what's going on, but the energetic healings, what happens is the body is healed on the energetic level. Once these healings happen, now it's up for the human body to catch up with it. And when I do my private readings, private consults, whatever you want to call them, is I'll normally send a bunch of different links of things for them to do to help facilitate their body catching up with the energetic healing. So everything can be fixed. Everything can be healed. Some things are, I don't edit anything I get because I don't need to. Everything can be healed regardless of how serious it seems. And then it's the spirit's prerogative to do what it wants with that healing based on what it wants to experience in the unfolding of their lives. That I love that destiny, where destiny and free will meet. But things are healed on the energetic level. So that equates with my clients into immediate results. It equates into results, over time that can be days, weeks, months. It results rarely, but sometimes, certainly, it's the spirit's prerogative to not incorporate the healing. Sometimes the healing is death. Sometimes when somebody's had some terminal illness or something and they're healed, I mean, I watch amazing things happen in my head. I mean, we could spend a week talking about this stuff.
I'd like to.
Sometimes, exactly. Sometimes it's that the spirits, they're ready, and that's their exit visa. That's their ticket to ride to exit stage left. They're done with their experience in this lifetime. They're ready to go back to non-physical. This is how they're choosing to go. Because we all choose when we go, how we go, where we go, who's with us when we go. Regardless of what it is, if it's instant, if it's a suicide, if it's a homicide, if you just die in your sleep, it doesn't matter. Our spirits all choose that.
Never been a mistake.
Never. I agree. So I'm going to get you on my radar. Tell me what's going on. We'll just pinpoint those things.
Okay.
Tell me what's going on.
There's two things. One that I've had for 20 years, which is needing frequent urination, needing to go to the bathroom very often. And it'll be triggered sometimes where I call them P-fits, where it's like, sometimes where it's like, every 10 minutes or 15 minutes for, an hour, a couple hours, and it's just a pain in the butt. It's like, and then sometimes you go and you don't have to go a lot. I mean, not a lot comes out, right? And it's just been it's just been an annoyance pretty much most of my adult life, and something my father's had as well. And so, I guess maybe it's a hereditary thing to some degree, but so I haven't ever figured that out. The other thing is, and it's, by the way, both these things are things I'm concerned about with my new. So, because with my new show, it's like, okay, I'm sitting there on a camera with a live audience. Okay, if I have to use the bathroom, I mean, it's not live streaming, so I guess I could get up and pause. But I don't want to have to all of a sudden have to go pee, right? So that's one. The bigger concern, even with that, is it started a few years ago, and it's gotten steadily worse, especially in the last few months. Interestingly enough, as I'm about to go from behind the microphone on camera showing my face, is getting red patchiness across my. First, it started across my nose. Now it's sort of on my forehead, and it's I think it may be eczema. It's like dry patchiness that flakes, and it's like I've tried going gluten-free for a month plus. Someone told me they thought that could be it. Didn't really help. And so some mornings, every morning I wake up, it's there to different degrees, right? Some days it's really like it looks angry. Other days it's like, okay, it's a little less noticeable, but it's and it's gotten worse. At first it started across my nose and in between my eyes, and now it's sort of like patchy on my forehead. And it's like, oh, great, I'm about to be on video, and I look like my face is all splotchy and weird and dry skin, and you know what I mean. So those two things are both things that I am calling in to fix.
Okay, all right. Let me get you on my radar. Here comes my laser beam. And you, like I said, from Sweet Home, Alabama, out to California. Got you.
I love it.
So I have a hologram of you in my mind's eye. I'm shooting energy from your feet up to the top of your head. It's going to your face first. We'll deal with your netherworld parts here in a second. But
right.
Your face. All right. It is eczema. It's diet related. I'll send you a link, and anybody listening, send me an email, julie@askjulieryan.com. I'm going to send you a link for half off of a gut biome test that you can get done, Brandon. That test, it's a molecular test, and it tests the RNA and the DNA of the critters in our guts. Our guts are where our immune system is based, and food is the best medicine. Food is the best medicine, but let's do personalized medicine here. You can do this test without having a prescription written. You can do it, yourself. You don't need a doctor to do it. And it's going to test the RNA and the DNA of the critters in your gut, which is really important because most of the tests that are run right now are using antiquated technology where they're trying to get something to grow in a petri dish. Well, the problem with that is a lot of the critters in our gut, the bacteria, the viruses, the parameciums, the ecosystem in our gut where our immune system is based, a lot of those critters die as soon as they hit oxygen. So they're trying to get dead stuff to grow in a petri dish. So it just doesn't work.
Right.
The DNA and the RNA they can find it whether the critters are alive or deceased. But the important thing about this is not so much what's in your gut, but what are the optimal foods for you to eat so that you can have an optimal immune system. And this technology was developed at Los Alamos for public health and has been licensed by this company, to utilize. But it's going to give you an app on your phone and also on your computer if you don't have a smartphone. And it's going to say, these are your superfoods, Brandon. These are the foods for you to avoid. Here's everything else. Eat this, liberally, moderatively, minimally, whatever. But the reason why that's so important is one of the things when I did this test for me personally was for me to avoid tomatoes. I'm like, what? Tomatoes are supposed to be
I love tomatoes
healthy.
too.
I do too. Well, it turned out I had some funky tomato virus in my gut that I'd gotten from eating an infected tomato. So by avoiding eating tomatoes, it didn't feed that virus. Every time I ate a tomato, the virus did a happy dance in my stomach, released toxins. The toxins caused inflammation. The inflammation caused symptoms. And the thing that I love about this test, Brandon, is that instead of saying, okay, eat the eczema diet, let's find out exactly what's going on in your gut. And let's find out exactly what your foods are that are going to cause you to have a robust immune system. And those symptoms are going to go away. So I believe it's wheat related. I also believe there are other things that are relating to it. And the algorithms in this technology are going to tell us this is what's going to be optimal for you to eat. You're going to find that perhaps some of the things you're avoiding are things that you can eat, and some of the things that you think are healthy for you are not healthy for you based on your gut biome. Okay. So I'll shoot you that link when we're done.
Great.
All right, let me see what's going on with this frequent urination thing. Okay, just what I expected. Your prostate's enlarged. I'm sure you've probably had a doctor tell you that at some point, or you.
I had it checked years back, and I think they said it was normal. But this has been a long time ago, maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's enlarged. So what I'm watching happen is I'm watching an energetic surgery called a TURP. TURP, which they do every day, all day long in hospitals all over the world. And what it does is it shaves part of the outer edge of the prostate off, Brandon. And then that allows the urine to flow without getting restricted. Because when the prostate gets big, it restricts the urine flow through the urethra and causes pressure on that. And so you don't empty all the way, which means that's why you have to go to the bathroom every 5 minutes. So in this procedure, this is a great example of watching a healing that emulates what I saw in the operating rooms for all those years.
Right.
And I just watched this TURP procedure. I think you can Google it, TURP, TURP as in Peter. I think it stands for transurethral resection of the prostate. And it's done outpatient and it's no big deal. Most of the time when I do this healing on people, it fixes the problem. Sometimes you may need to have the procedure done, but it's not a big deal to have it done. And when that happens, the energetic healing has already transpired. So it just helps if you do have to have the procedure in an outpatient setting, it's going to help the procedure go smoother, faster, healing faster, because it's already healed on the energetic level. That makes sense?
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
You do have a tear in your energy field membrane. Do you want me to fix that?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Is that a trick question?
Sometimes things come up that are really personal, but I'm thinking you're talking about frequent urination. That's pretty personal.
Yeah, I'm not scared.
Yeah, with your audience. So
I'm very vulnerable with the audience.
Very transparent, obviously. Okay, so I'm going to go into this tear. The tear that you have kind of looks like it's not just a slit. It's more like a vertical oval, kind of like where the points of the oval are at the top and the bottom. And it's in the middle of your body on the front. So it goes from just right below your sternum down to right below your navel. Easy for me to say, navel. And so I'm going to go into that hole, that opening, and I'm going to be shown some kind of a scene. Okay, so the year's 1974. Brandon, I have no idea how old you were. Where were you in 1974?
I was born in 1974.
All right. Okay, so it's 1974. So let's see if it's like, pre-birth or if it's something, that happened in utero or if it's something that happened afterwards. Okay. So did you have the cord wrapped around your neck by any chance? Did your mom ever tell you that when you were born?
No, my employee told me that happened to his child yesterday afternoon. But
okay. All right.
I've never heard that.
This is that you did in utero. And as you started to go into the birth canal, what I'm watching is I'm watching you wiggling out of that. And babies do this all the time. It's like they get caught up in the umbilical cord, that's hooked to the placenta. And I'm watching you getting out of that. You at one point had the cord wrapped around your neck when you were in utero.
Wow.
And,
weird. I was very scared about my neck when I was young. I'm really weird about people touching it. And it's kind of waned as I've gotten older, but I always had this weird thing about my neck, especially when I was younger.
That's why.
Gotcha.
So what happened was it caused a little energy block, an energy block a la Eastern medicine, acupressure, acupuncture. They're trying to clear the blocks to move the chi. Same concept.
Yeah.
So this clears that energy block. And so that membrane, your energy field membrane, as I've coined it, I've came up with that name. I've never heard anybody else call it that, but that's what I call it. It is now repairing and it is being sutured. And then there'll be a patch that goes on top of it. And then it's lasered. And so that's happening. So by illuminating that emotional situation, certainly that could have killed you during birth.
Yep.
As you were coming down the birth canal. That emotional thing that happened in utero is cleared now. And this is the cool part, Brandon. Every other emotional event that's caused an energy block to build on that initial block is cleared as well. Like hitting a domino and toppling a row of dominoes that have been lined up. So it's all clear. Your energy field membrane is back to normal. I'm shooting energy from your feet up through the top of your head. You're vibrating on full power and you are, you're lit up like the North Star. So
Wow.
back to my fish analogy in the plastic bag. If
Mm-hmm.
there's a pinhole in that plastic bag of the fish with the water, and the water's draining out a drop at a time, for a long time that fish is going to be okay. But after enough water drains out, Brandon, that fish is going to be in trouble. And that's what I see happen with the human body is we have these energy leaks that go on for decades. And over time, the body is not working on full power. And that's always precedes any kind of medical condition coming in. So when we heal the body first, and then we fix the energy field membrane so that the body's working on full power, the body's always going to do its best to return to health or homeostasis. Always.
Right.
And so that's just like a little brief healing that we did there on you.
Cool.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Do you what are your thoughts on these issues being affected? So with the eczema thing, you feel like, okay, go through this process that you've instructed that you're going to send over a link to.
It's diet related.
Yep. Yeah,
so
I knew it was.
Yeah.
I knew it was. And when you said tomatoes, it's funny because they're one of my favorite things. My own intuition is they could be a problem. I've never cut them out of my diet. But it's funny that you brought those up because I've just felt like, why do I feel like maybe these could be the part of the problem? But who knows? I'm just, sharing that. So do you feel like
lectins in them too? Tomatoes have lectins in them, which is a protein that's to keep from being eaten, basically. And in the cultures that use tomatoes, like the Italian culture, they peel their tomatoes and remove the seeds. That's where the lectins are. Some people are allergic to lectins, but we're going to find that out from that, that gut biome test. We're going to find out exactly what you need to eat to have optimal health and an optimal immune system. And all these symptoms are just going to go away. So let's not treat the symptoms. Let's treat the source of the symptom.
It's music to my ears because, just shooting in the dark, like, if you go watch like videos on how to get rid of eczema on YouTube, for example, a lot of these people have done it. They cut out almost everything. I mean, it's you can eat like some complex carbs and that's it. And it's like, wow, that's going to really suck. If someone were to tell me these are the reasons, Brandon, do this, I know this is a reason, I'll do it all day long, whatever it is, but don't make me take away 90% of food just to try and, hit, what do they say? Use a hammer on a fly instead of a fly swatter or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that is the case and it really pinpoints it like you say. And wow, that would be incredible.
Well, it's not, let's single out what the problem is. Let's just cut to the chase and figure out what the problem is and deal with it. And then the interesting thing about this program too, Brandon, is that I got a notice probably 6 months after I eliminated tomatoes saying, okay, if you've eliminated them, this is a long enough time for that virus to have died and for you to have expelled it. And so you may want to try reintroducing tomatoes and see how that works. So that's amazing as well. It doesn't mean that now, I don't think you need to be, eating fake food. You don't need to be subsisting on Twinkies 3 meals a day. But, I always go by the premise of if God made it, eat it. If man made it in a factory, try and avoid it. And I think that's organic as much as you can and all of that. But let's see, just because I'm eating tomatoes that are organic doesn't mean they're good for me based on what my gut biome is. A couple of the other things that were on my list were pistachios and cauliflower. I'm thinking, okay. I was eating organic cauliflower. I didn't eat pistachios that much, but I did once in a blue moon. And I was told, okay, based on the critters in my gut, that's not a superfood for me. It's a food that's going to cause inflammation, and inflammation is the root of all disease and illness.
Right.
As far as cancer goes, too, by the way, just FYI, I work with a lot of cancer patients, and I do a healing that's called genome editing, where we correct the mutations in the DNA. And I have an advisory board, Brandon, of surgeons and geneticists and anesthesiologists and therapists and people that I'll call if I'm seeing a healing. I'm saying, what the heck is this? So I saw this healing several times. The more I do this, the more higher level healings I'm able to access. And the first time I saw this, genome editing is what it's called. I didn't know that at the time, but I was like, okay, the letters in the strand of DNA are being rearranged like a Scrabble game. And I saw them come out of a chromosome. And so I called my buddy, who's my advisor, that's a world-renowned geneticist. And I said, what am I seeing? And he said, it's called genome editing. And he said, it's a hypothesis right now. 5 institutes around the world are studying it. Nobody's seen it. Nobody can prove it. And there's no way in hell you would know about it. And I said, wow. Well, obviously I do, because I just described it to you. And so now every time I talk to him, he wants to know about the patients that I'm working on, that I do this. Wow. But that's a great example of something that the scientists they know it exists. They haven't figured out how it exists yet, but I'm seeing it on the energetic level, and it's having an effect on these mutations in the DNA. And cancer is really crafty because those cells will continue to mutate. So we just stay 3 steps ahead of them. When they mutate, we're fixing those strands of DNA, right as they're mutating. And just the potential with these healings is so fantastic. It's just amazing.
Well, I'm curious. That's incredible. I'm curious. So with the frequent urination thing, I mean, do you have any sort of insight into? I mean, do you anticipate that I'll notice a big difference now? What is your thoughts?
Well,
I mean, or you said I would need to have a procedure. Like, what is the likelihood that you would guesstimate?
I think you have a 40% chance at this moment in time. Remember, future events are fluid. At this moment in time, I think you have a 40% chance of needing the surgical procedure. So let's see what happens. As I mentioned, the healing has happened on the energetic level. Now it's up to your body to catch up with it. It may be instant. You may notice a difference over days, weeks, months, or you may need to have the medical procedure to complement the energetic healing that's already happened. Any one of those outcomes can happen.
Interesting.
So stay in touch with me and let me know. I mean,
And I don't know if it's helpful for us to do another session or anything like that.
Well, I want to do a whole hour session with you, and we'll just give you you talk about a spiritual tune-up, man. We're gonna do a body tune-up.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
And I promise it won't hurt.
I love it. I love this type of this is my kind of medical visit,
it's fun, and it's I find it's fun, and it's interesting, and it's just amazing the outcomes that we get from these energetic healings. It's fantastic.
Well, we'll do that soon if your schedule permitting, and then I'll keep the audience abreast of what's happening with me. And then one last question as we sort of wind down here. I have a few more questions, but we'll start winding down here. The other thing that I'm curious about, I thought it was pretty epic that you spot on nailed my birth year, having no idea how old I am, and this cord wrapped around my neck thing. What has that? I had this tear, right, as you said, and now it's healed. So how was that harming me? And now what will be the benefits of having it healed?
When we have an emotional event, like you as a fetus having the cord wrapped around your neck, when we have an emotional event, and certainly that could have been a life or death situation, but you maneuvered out of it. You were like squirming out of it.
That sounds like me. My parents always say I would never sit still. I was the child, like they couldn't hold me. I was like on the go. So that sounds, I came out that way too. They said just full of energy and vigor.
Well, what I was shown a scene of was it wasn't right before delivery because the baby's too big. At that point, you were probably, maybe 6 to 7 months where you still had a lot of swim room in utero. And you were just kind of maneuvering around. And it would be fun to ask your mom if you were an active baby when she was pregnant with you. My guess is you were. You were probably, doing backflips and dancing and whatever. So when there's an emotional event like that, whether it's past life, current life, in utero, I can honestly say in 25 years, Brennan, I've never had the emotional event be in utero. I've never seen that before with anybody, and I've certainly worked with thousands and thousands of people over the years.
Wow.
So that was fun for me.
That was new, huh?
Hope it was good for you. It's like it was for me. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, wow.
The emotional event thing just causes an energy block. And then as we have other emotional events transpire in our lifetime, it builds on that energy block. And eventually it builds enough pressure, kind of like a snowball. You need to take a snowball and it's the size of a golf ball, and then you roll it in the snow and it gets bigger, 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 bigger. So that energy block, what I perceive is that it gets bigger, bigger, causes enough pressure that it causes a blowout in that energy field membrane. And then that affects the body. So the interesting thing about these emotional events are they can be something really simple, like somebody called you a bad name when you were little and it hurts your feelings, to something really dramatic. Like one of my favorite examples is I have a client in the UK, and when I dove into the tear that was in her energy field membrane, it was a hole. It looked like somebody had shot a cannonball from the inside out of her membrane. Wow. And I saw this scene of her as a preteen, and there was an explosion. And I said to her, does that make sense to you? And she said, yeah, I was a victim of an IRA bombing when I was 12.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, well, that's pretty dramatic as far as an emotional event. And so some of her family members were killed. She was just injured and spent a year in the hospital. And so I see all kinds of different things. The past life ones are fun because I did one a couple of weeks ago on a guy, and he was a British admiral in the Navy, and he was in command of this. A lot of times we can correlate the information from the past life stuff with historic documents and stuff. And this guy was the command of a battle. And I was given a year, and he was head of this whatever fleet and blah, 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 blah. Turns out there was some really famous naval battle during that year against where the French and the British worked in conjunction against, I forget whoever. Anyway, we even got his name when we did the past life thing, Brennan, and his name's all over the internet. This admiral from, the 1700s. Wow. It was wild. And I get stuff like that all the time. It's a riot. It's so much fun.
Incredible. Yeah,
it's fun.
So,
fun.
So do you think there will be any tangible differences that I noticed from the healing of that energetic tear, or it's just sort of one of these? I think you'll notice it on
the physical level. It's not so much an emotional healing. It's more geared towards a medical healing. So you'll notice it on the physical level. As far as the emotional level, certainly there are healings that we do on the emotional level too, but this was a medical healing that we watched with you.
Gotcha. Interesting. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, wow, this has been so fascinating. I've so enjoyed connecting with you, Julie. You are such an inspiring individual, and I definitely hope our paths cross in 3D at some point. One of the things that I think, before I get to my sort of last question, why don't we do this? What's the best way for others who want to connect with you and follow your work and possibly even, get a session done with you or something? What's the best way for them to do that?
AskJulieRyan.com. AskJulieRyan.com has everything. You can get to my book. You can get to my classes. My show, we recorded on Thursday nights, is on dozens of networks, iTunes, Stitcher, iHeart, Google Play.
I'm
on Alexa. I'm on YouTube, whatever. Follow me on Instagram, Ask Julie Ryan, Facebook, Ask Julie Ryan. Everything's Ask Julie Ryan.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Well, I do have one final question to ask Julie Ryan, and it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life, according to Julie Ryan?
To experience joy.
Well, you have definitely helped cultivate my joy today. Julie, you are such a gift, such a pleasure. Thank you so much for stopping by. I look forward to, dropping in more with you on a longer session. And I'll keep, like I said, I'll keep all you listening. I'll keep you up to date on how all this goes. But Julie, thank you.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. What a treat to be with you and your audience today. So hope you have a great weekend. Everybody listening, have a great weekend too.
Take care, everyone. Till next time, journey well. Well, everyone, that concludes this week's interview episode. Before we sign off, I wanted to let you all know that we have finally created the Game with the Universe on our website, where you can choose the first number that comes to your mind, and it'll pull up that episode number of the podcast. I've been saying this is a great way to co-create synchronicity and magic with your higher self for quite some time by doing this manually. But now, if you go to positivehead.com/YO universe, there is a super fun and simple interface to play this game with your higher self. I firmly believe just by setting the intention to play in this way, it opens up the door for magic, and it's a synchronistic way to hone in on nuggets of wisdom out of the huge catalog of episodes that are specifically appropriate for you at this time in your journey to becoming the next greatest and grandest version of yourself. And it also makes for a super fun way to engage and invite friends, family, people on social media to check out the podcast as well. So be sure to check out positivehead.com/YOUNIVERSE, and be sure to tell all your friends so they can play a game with the universe, which also helps the show to reach new people, which I greatly appreciate. And as a quick reminder, be sure to also check out positivehead.com/transformation if you're curious to learn more about Purium superfoods and why I take them every day. On this journey of becoming the next greatest and grandest version of ourselves that we have all embarked upon, I can't stress the importance of managing your physical vibration enough. And quite honestly, Purium has put together the simplest plan I've found to do so, and I'm sincerely excited to share it with all of you. Otherwise, as you continue on your fabulous journey in this 3D reality, be sure to remember this. As long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Journey well, everyone, and thank you for being.